such a beautiful film, such a moving film, and the fact that it is a silent film makes that achievement all the more, I think, impressive.
Yeah, I think I would actually like describe these films as dialogue free rather than silent because I think the sound and the music have maybe even a bigger role than most films. And we can be more expressive, not just with the sound and music, but with the images as well. This is inspired by a short film I made, which I made in high school about a cat I had at the time, and it's maybe like technically not the best work I've done, but like there was something about the emotional kind of core that kept resonating with me. When time was approaching to make this film, I wanted to tell a story about my experience of learning how to work together and how to trust others because I used to work alone. And I thought the cat would be the perfect protagonist for this character arc, which starts out as this kind of very independent character and learns to trust others.
I don't know if we have a lot of cat owners out here, but I have a cat who is a black cat with yellow eyes who acts exactly like the cat in this movie. And watching this, I was like all the mannerisms, the expressions, the reactions that this cat has to the other creatures around it, the world around it. This movie made me feel uh, it made me feel affirmed in the belief that my cat is trying to communicate with me on a daily basis. And this part of your inspiration was from a cat that you yourself once had. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I knew cats and dogs really well. I've had both of them, and the cat and the dog were inspired by my pets. So I didn't have to do too much research, but we did look at a lot of cat videos. That was a very hard task for us. But yeah, so we wanted to kind of convey them as in the most grounded way possible. That makes the story a lot more intense and a lot more emotional when you feel like it's a real cat rather than in some other animated films you might see like animals behaving like people pretty much, and yeah, you lose something. And I feel like these animals are so interesting and so funny that we don't need to like exaggerate them too much. I wanted to create the sense that you are the cat in the film. I wanted to create that subjective kind of point of view, and I think that's really cool that with cinema you can create this. You can go and feel what it's like being a cat.
You've spoken a little bit before about how a lot of your well, your these past three films that I've mentioned are animated films. That you've personally taken inspiration from live action film as well. And I wonder if there's also a little bit of Miyazaki's interest in the natural world that you bring in as a filmmaker. Could you share some of the influences and inspirations of your own?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Miyazaki, and yeah, the way he would depict nature and also have these moments of quiet and reflection, which makes the more intense parts feel more intense because there is this kind of dynamic range with the tempo of the film. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of many like live action filmmakers and the way they would use camera to tell the story and not just do the conventional coverage of close ups and wide shots, but to have each of the shots be very specific to this moment and to have the camera be an active kind of participant. It's not just observing them from a distance, it's kind of reacting to them and sometimes not catching them perfectly. To have these long takes with the camera following the characters, sometimes for 5 minutes, which I feel like is something that hasn't been explored in animation. You can touch the wetness of the water. You can like sense these textures and to have this sensual kind of experience.
The way that water, for example, is depicted. There's quite a few different ways in which we experience water, in which our cat certainly experiences water. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the challenge of that one element. I mean, often in animation and perhaps VFX, we hear how difficult water is as an element, but here you're really imbuing the water scenes with specific qualities. And what was your approach to that?
Yeah, water is a huge challenge in any type of film because it's really hard to control. And actually like all the water scenes were done by just two people. Usually there's a big team of VFX artists, but we had just two people. And yeah, the water kind of helps us to understand the characters. When the cat is afraid of these animals, the water is also very scary and aggressive. But when it starts to be more friendly, the water becomes more peaceful and tranquil. And so it was a very important aspect in the film. But we had to develop all kinds of new tools because water is not just one thing. And there's like the puddle, there's the lake and the river and the ocean, and each of them have like completely different techniques. And it was one of the first things we started and last things we finished. Basically, like days before the premiere, it was quite stressful to like get it to the finish line.
Wow, you're days away from premiering at Cannes, and your water's almost done. Yeah, I can't imagine that pressure. Your 2019 film Away is notable for many reasons. One of which being that you wrote, directed, animated, scored it solo, which is really, really almost unheard of. But here you had a little bit more help. How did you bring in a team? What did that team look like? Going from making an entire feature film by yourself to bringing in a whole team of animators, designers. You have a co-composer, co-writer.
Yeah, so I think maybe this is the first film I've actually directed. Before I was just a filmmaker, but this time I'm actually telling people what to do. So I had to learn how to articulate my thoughts because before I can just make them, I didn't need to explain them. And this can be very helpful because then everything has a reason to be there. But I also tried to like find the balance of not over-explaining things, which I think can happen. So there were certain moments where I have to ask the team to trust me that when we have the music, when we have the animation and lights, it's going to work. And so in some cases, it was easier just for me to show what I want rather than explain. So that's why I still participated in the music. So music is so subjective. It's kind of hard to articulate your specific emotion. So I would just like create a sketch, and then another composer, Richard Zalupa, he takes that and brings it to another level. But it was like a very collaborative kind of process where we are sending things back and forth. And yeah, I also wanted to design the shots. Like I did the animatic myself because I need to go through that process of discovery. I like making the animatic is like almost another draft of the script, where I don't feel like I have to rigidly follow the script. I can deviate from it, and because I do it chronologically, I start with the first shot, and then I know the ending, so this gives me the freedom to kind of step away from the written kind of script. But yeah, I don't use storyboards. Even though we had resources, we could hire storyboard artists. I do the animatic in 3D. I kind of design the set. It's a very simple version of the set, but I can explore it with this virtual camera. It's almost like location scouting in live action. And this kind of, sometimes I make some happy discoveries, like where I don't know if a shot will be 5 seconds or 5 minutes. It's very spontaneous and like intuitive, and so yeah, because I have to do this because we have the long takes, and you can't just draw that. You have to do it in this very like 3D way.
I think that's a really, really fascinating thing to learn about how you made this movie, because I think we're all sort of accustomed to assuming that storyboards are in place to help guide the team, but your method is also intended to help with a limited budget, right? You create a 3D environment. This was all made in Blender, by the way, which is really interesting too. But you make the 3D environment, you put your characters in, and then you use, as you said, a virtual camera to then find your shot. And some of these scenes, the camera's so dynamic and so alive and so beautiful in its movement that it's really cool to hear that that's how you found them. Did you find that that your research, I mean, you mentioned online cat videos, internet cat videos. Thank you. Thank heavens for those. What else did your research look like? Were you watching like Planet Earth nature documentaries? Were you like studying movement and nature? What was helpful for you?
Well, in terms of the world, we looked at real places, but we made like something new. I wanted it to feel like we've never seen these places. Like we're on this adventure and experiencing this world for the first time, just like the cat. But we did look at references to make it feel grounded and believable, but we combined them into something new. And yeah, so we looked at. We also went to the zoo and filmed these animals and studied them. And but yeah, I didn't know that cats actually don't look around with their eyes. They actually use their heads to look around rather than eyes. And that was like that's what makes them feel more cat-like and less cartoony. So that was a good suggestion from our animation director.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Another round of applause for Flo and for Gints Zilbalodis. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.